Let us now refer to figure 54. We first observe how and why compression begets expansion and vice versa. If one throws a compressed mass such as a stone into water, it will beget the figure 54 type of wave. Note that the compression causes the opposite mate to be centered with shorter and higher waves which expand to greater distances apart as they recede from that center. This should not be difficult for you to understand, for it should be familiar to you from your childhood. You can see the same effect when a fish captures an insect upon the water's surface. Here is another example of nature's processes to help clarify the meaning of that pinhole camera. That cardboard through which the hole has been punched is an equator which divides compression from expansion. If you will observe that the waves of water as they approach a hole in a cliff or a hole between rocks in a running brook, you will see curved waves closing inward as they near that hole and piling up above the water level, then dropping in foamy bubbles which become more foamy as the drop becomes deeper. That spells out the meaning that compression is the cause and expansion is the effect of that closing. Science, however, uses the words diffraction and refractions for similar effects of that same cause. Our point in this discussion is to prove that science uses those terms diffraction and refraction in many other effects of a similar nature. It uses the word reflection where light strikes in a pool of water. A straight line seems to extend between the wall and the bottom of the pool. That line is curved, however, for the potential of pressure increases at every succeeding level. Once more, we repeat that there cannot be a straight line of light rays or parallel lines in a curved universe, as textbooks on optics constantly claim. Another point we have repeatedly claimed is that compression and expansion are the only forces which keep this curved universe in continuous motion. Without them, this hot universe of compressed light would return to its static state of cold. For this reason, we have entitled our drawings, figure 53, Cathode Light Multiplying Compression Rings, and 54, Anode Light Dividing Expansion Rings. Now it must be known that the biconvex lens, which controls compression, focuses outside of itself to create heat in 4 efforts at its 4 foci. When these 4 efforts combine with the opposite sides of the sun to create the octaves of the elements, their combined heat foci create a complete sphere. Maximum heat for that octave is then in the center of both biconvex and biconcave curvatures. Until then, both curvatures focus on the outside, but when both curvatures have created a true sphere, the biconcave lens becomes the centering one. The other 6 lenses are known as meniscus lenses. These 7 lenses then begin to thin at their centers, and holes return to oblate the planets or suns until their masses eventually become rings and disappear in the outside dark of cold space by the same process as living bodies do when they die and disappear in the inside dark of the earth. That is why people bury dead bodies. Dead bodies give life to the seed of living bodies. That is how things grow. It is the very life principle of repetitive nature. This brief explanation of the principle of growth brings us back to the cosmic cinema motion picture, which is this universe, and explains the illusion which the universe of motion also is. It further explains why this universe is a photosynthetic one where every mind picture of its thinking process disappears into its dark interval for rebirth into another sequential picture until the idea it represents is completed. Then the cube mirrors of dark space repeat that sequence of pictures in another idea cycle of life. As gravity is the desire force which controls mind thinking, it gives another reason why this universe of motion should be called an optical universe of gravity-controlled light. The fact that every thought wave picture dissolves every one of its sequences into the still zero of these sequences proves the validity of our own law, which states that every action-reaction of motion is voided as it occurs, is repeated as it is voided, and recorded as it is repeated. This also proves that the whole of creation is still, and that nothing really happens except thought and desire of mind to manifest thought, by taking its one idea of creation apart and dividing it into many ideas. In this manner, we are gradually unfolding the secrets of the universe cosmically and endeavoring to point the way for man to think beyond what his eyes can see. We will outline and diagram the principles and techniques of power projection, transmutation, and the ability to use gravity and the multiplied heat from the sun as solar energy at the close of this series of lessons. We now return to a step-by-step explanation of the buildup of light and heat from the curved compression lenses that are centered by holes which cause density to increase from inward to outward to those which become solid spheres where density increases from the outside inward. Figure 55 diagrams the first step in explaining this multiplying principle. Now study figure 56 from the top diagram down as we proceed. The diagram marked A exemplifies a gravity bar, which has been wrongly known as a bar magnet. This diagram A represents nature's method of dividing the undivided cold-dark stillness of the universal equilibrium into divided pairs of opposites to which nature gives motion for the purpose of interchanging in order to enable them to unite and repeat their division. As the old positive and negative symbols do not picture this process, for one is not plus and the other minus, but equal mates instead. We were obligated to use the plus for both red and blue sides of the spectrum. We use the double plus to indicate the poles of maximum compression and heat to fix the new conception of this curved, moving universe. The arrows symbolize the direction of motion. The double plus symbol represents the poles of unity where the collision takes place, which unites them. The second diagram marked B very clearly indicates the wave interferences, which multiply light by adding the power of the largest lens to each succeeding smaller one. This multiplies each one in the universe cube ratio. You will note 3 pairs of foci on each side of the cathode zero and a 4th pair, which is a pair in 1, in the sun, thus multiplied from its 0 to 8, 64, 512, and 4096 powers. That gives to nature its compression principle, which makes its uphill flow of energy possible. Take special note that the wave spheres from which the lenses are taken reduce in the same ratio. To explain numbers 8, 64, 512, 4096, compute mathematically what is known as the square and the cube in inverse and direct ratio. The question is one of pure mathematics, not of matter. In the third diagram, marked C, we have made a close-up of only two of the lenses in order to better emphasize the position of maximum heat, which maximum compression makes possible. As you will see in the charts given in later pages, the first 4 elements of the first 4 octaves have not yet closed their holes. The 5th element of the 4th octave is carbon. In this element, the hole is closed. It then reverses and increases its density and heat from the outside in. In and after the 4th and up to the 9th octave, beginning with carbon, all of the elements are solid. These elements are able to eject their multiplied electrons with ever-increasing speed until they reach the 9th octave, where radium, neptunium, and others of that octave are enabled to eject their multiplied electrons with such force that they are incandescent and have obtained the speed of light. These electrons can be seen in the spinthariscope. All of these together make up nature's intercommunicating system by means of which every action-reaction is made so aware of every other action-reaction pulsation that it demonstrates the oneness of God's universe of motion as it is in its stillness. In concluding this lesson, we shall give you a diagram of one complete octave of the carbon type. See figure 57. We regret that it is not possible to present it in full spectrum colors. In the next lesson, we will take another step in unfolding nature's secrets. Note, we may be misunderstood throughout these lessons by stating that the word electricity should not be used for an optical universe. The word electricity is used for every effect of light, such as your light bulbs. The word opticity would have no meaning for the average man. I am Germain. Chapter 9, recording number 4, Germain. Saturday, August 31st, 1991, 1 p.m., Year 5, Day 15. Completion, construction of wave principle. We have heretofore built up an understanding of the reason why light needs a method for transferring its knowing to a dynamic dramatization of the God nature by means of moving images of the idea contained in the word omniscient, which means all knowledge combined in its undivided stillness in an undivided universe. It was first necessary to describe very clearly the nature of light, and especially that quality of desire in it which controlled the division of light into its spectrum colors and the cube principle which gravity made use of to repeat its cycles. If the Creator were merely the knower and the thinker with desire to think, the father-mother manifestation of what the Creator knows, there would be no divided universe, for the very purpose of that division is to manifest the father-mother idea of equal pairs of opposites. This it does by dividing that one omniscient idea into countless fathers and mothers for uniting into the one idea by the mutual interchange of each to each other. This, in total, is the thinking principle, and the light bodies thus created by this process have no real existence other than a thought existence. It will be noted by observers that a division into pairs must always have a balancing equator. The cube of zero curvature supplies that balancing equator. That division into idea also includes the identity of every created thing. A man's entire body is divided into symmetrically equal pairs. The head is balanced with 2 ears for hearing, 2 nostrils and 2 lungs for breathing, 2 sides of a mouth for eating or laughing, two eyes for seeing, and 2 arms and 2 legs for working and walking. Even the heart has 2 ventricles to complete its pumping cycles. Thus, it is throughout all animal and vegetable life. Trees throw out the branches and their roots spread out equally. If a tree leans over its roots, that leaning must be counterbalanced. That is why real knowledge of the construction of the wave and why of that construction should be known. To draw conclusions based upon observed illusions is to make assumptions of truth and takes much needless time and effort from man. Even if the axioms of mathematics are not self-evident truths, for mathematicians for centuries have made decisions with which mathematicians of later years have discarded and supplemented with new ones. The Nazarene likewise said that man cannot gain knowledge by observation. Such changing knowledge is merely an assumption, and assumptions are but information, just as food is not nourishment until it has been digested. Encyclopedias are full of such ever-changing information, which subsequent editions change to fit more modern assumptions. The early scientists believed that the world was flat. He could see it with his own eyes. Those words were the belief of the ages. They still are. Ptolemy believed them and changed the whole world's belief because of it. All that was theretofore accepted as truth was All of that was theretofore accepted as truth was thrown out of the window. Copernicus believed those words and again threw all that was theretofore known out the window. How many times that has happened during the ages up to the expanding universe and the Rutherford Bohr construction of the atom theories, one does not know, because each new concept affected the whole structure in so subtle a way that one could not positively say that the whole of it was thrown out the window. We, however, throw all of the combined concepts out of the window. We are rewriting this revised and expanded lesson to open up your inner vision, which lies beyond thinking. This is known as imagination and inspiration, and these are the qualities which cosmic thinkers have acquired to such an extent that they can see that light of creation within themselves with inner vision. This is a quality which cosmic consciousness illuminates have to a very great extent, and geniuses have attained to a lesser extent. You will grasp our meaning by such facts that geniuses such as Beethoven and Liszt can hear sounds where there is not but silence, and write them down in beautiful rhythmic themes to uplift the souls of other men. Neither of these two classes needs schools or universities. The fact that such inner vision may not have yet come to you as it eventually will is the very reason why we print so many pictures and diagrams. Inner vision and inspiration are seen in pictures, not in words. Pictures remain in your memory for a long time, while words can be forgotten in a few moments. That is our main purpose for printing so many of them, and as few words as necessary, to give you greater understanding to the pictures. By indelibly fixing the pictures which you fully comprehend into your mind, you will slowly become a cosmic thinker. The deeper your desire is to enter that coveted realm, the more you will comprehend these pictures and the faster you will enter its doors. Inner vision gives knowledge of the process which makes the radiation of heat from the sun gradually cool as its rays divide by the concave curvature into which these light rays from the sun increase their distance from it. The same is true about the planets surrounding the sun. Mercury is so hot that even its metals melt or glow with red-hot heat. Venus is so much further away from the sun that it has cooled sufficiently to have water upon it, but that water is so hot because of the hot planet itself that it is a thick blanket of steam which perpetually cools it. There has been a worldwide question as to why water flowed downhill. The answer is as simple as the reason rain falls from the skies or a stone falls to the ground. The one answer to all these questions is gravity. To know the secrets of gravity, it is to know why the universe of motion exists. We trust that these lessons will clarify this mystery. With the application of nature's process, true knowledge is irrefutable. That is why we are endeavoring to give a simple roadmap which leads to the doors of man's source in space. Each step tells us that such an orderly and coordinated system as this universe of motion must have its focus in a creator who made it come into being by thinking it into being. A convincing fact of this lies in the principle of mind concentration and decentration, which terms have parallel meaning with terms compression and expansion. We return, therefore, to the diagram illustration made to help you visualize effects which are based upon cause. We have been able only to picture the universe by its conical aspect, but not by its cubical aspect. This is because it is only possible to show two tetrahedrons of the cube at an edgewise angle, but not the four faces within which the equatorial plane revolved spirally to show that expanding radiation revolves at an angle of 90 degrees from the compression of generation. To illustrate our meaning, hold a cube on the level of your eyes and you will see only one of its 6 sides. Holding it lower still, you will see 3 of its 6 sides. As pictures remain in the consciousness longer than words, it is necessary to visualize the cube crystal shape as well as the conical curvature shape. Search for more secrets. In this section of lessons, pictures for increasing inner vision of the wave and its structure will exceed the text. We will dig more deeply into the mysteries of wave structure, and this alone will bring about a new and more advanced science by giving certainty to conclusions instead of the lack of sureness of previous ages. The first diagrams which will be described are those which still accentuate the optical principle of the relations of curvature to the law of octave structure in nature. This structure multiplies cold into heat and heat into cold. Both of these spinnings endeavor to close the holes which reverses the direction of their densities. Diagram number 58 demonstrates the optical principles of octave multiplication by convex lenses located on the gravity bar in the direction of compression. There are 4 pairs of these lenses which compress, each one located at octave positions in their waves in the same order as the octaves of the elements of matter are located. Take note that these are enclosed by the cubes of zero curvature instead of spheres of maximum curvature, as shown in a previous diagram where curvature is necessary to continue motion. The drawing clearly marks the location of the biconvex lenses within their cube enclosures of zero motion. Observe carefully that as compression multiplies in the cube which encloses the largest lens, the cube itself compresses at the mathematical ratio to include the next smaller lens. This ratio follows the octave wave relation to the elements of matter which are endeavoring to multiply in each succeeding one of its 9 octaves until they succeed sufficiently at the 4th octave to close the hole. The gravity bar at the bottom of this diagram gives no indication of the 4 pairs of focal poles which the octave principle of the elements demands to continue motion. Take note that this principle affects the ability to transmute. We print the next 2 diagrams, figures 59 and 60, to illustrate the thermodynamic principle that the invisible cold white light can only become visible by extending that light in every direction to create waves. Waves are, therefore, formed by the compression of 2 extending lights meeting each other and overlapping in that effect which science calls interferences. The sections of arcs which are thus affected cause bioconvex lenses to form which focus back to their point of giving out from themselves in order to fulfill the principle of giving love out from themselves, for God is light and love also is light. The regiving of love in equal dimension is fulfilled by the fact that the lens also focuses toward the center of the regiving wave. This dividing principle of extension of light from every point of it illustrates the oneness of creation by uniting pairs of identities into one identity. It even goes further by uniting all identities into their one source of the creator of all identities. The question of these divided pairs is the why of them. Why create them? The very simple answer to that question is that God thinks. God thinks but one thing. That one thing is the divine idea of love. Desire of mind to divide that one idea into many seemingly separate ideas is for the purpose of dynamically picturing the effects which can arise from such seeming divisions of the indivisible one whole. Since God is light, there is no other way of expressing the Creator's one idea than in making use of the one thing, light, as the silent language needed to express those many ideas, just as man needs words of sound to express his many ideas. We have referred to this soundless language of light in a previous lesson. We have described how an apple, a lemon, or trees of different species have meanings of their identities by their form, their color, their odor, and their other unchangeable qualities, and also how each one of these separate identities loses its separate identity in each other, and all of them lose their collective identities in each other. Thus is established the fact of universal oneness of all identities. This supreme fact of universal oneness is the most difficult idea to fully comprehend. Humans live in an environment which includes all ideas of creation, and it is often impossible for even the greatest of your intellectuals to comprehend his oneness with all things. The majority of the human race thinks objectively through its senses. The few who have developed sufficient inner vision to become cosmic consciousness, the few who have developed sufficient inner vision to become cosmic conscious knowers instead of outer vision thinkers come only once in 1,000 or more years. These illumined ones are more apt to be crucified or ignored as being reactionaries during their lifetime. It is possible this time to grasp the opportunity. Is it possible this time to grasp the opportunity, or shall ye do it again? Will you turn from the truth again? Universal brotherhood and its mutual interdependence through rhythmic balanced interchange must come into being in order to stop the fast approaching wholesale slaughter of man by his own brothers. The day has come when it is quite possible that man may not only annihilate his own species suddenly by all-out atomic war, but more slowly through fallout radiation and horrible mutations. Not only is this possible, but its forecast by that frightful word, Armageddon, is becoming more and more familiarly heard and written about than one would surely like it to be. Nevertheless, men continue to deal with each other in an unbalanced manner, which continues the process of disintegration, caring only for what comforts and luxuries the upper stratas can still get, and with little thought or care for the lower underprivileged stratas. Let us search for the reason of man's vast ignorance of the knowledge he has to learn. Study the dark nothingness of figure 59. It is very difficult for the unimaginative observer to understand that there is no darkness anywhere except through its own limitations of outer vision. That is why this early stage of man's unfolding needs new inner knowledge to transform him into a cosmic being instead of a limited sense thinker. And that is what we and other enlightened souls of today are giving to the world in order that man may find happiness such as the ecstasy of God's thinking. We now print a series of diagrams to more vividly stamp this knowledge on man's memories. Figures 61, 62, 63, 64, and 65 will help visualize the principle of creating visible light into pictures of God's imaginings better than words could possibly do. Man's peaceful progress depends upon the understanding and practice of these inviolate natural laws which govern his universe, whether he is aware of them or not. The one thing which is almost impossible for the mind of man to comprehend is to look into that blank dark nothingness of such a diagram as figure 59 and figure 63 in a lesser degree, and realize that they are on three-dimensional angles of 90 degrees from their axis of rotation, like the 8 other cubes and 6 tetrahedrons which govern that division by dividing the indivisible nothingness into divided pairs of spectrum lights for the purpose of again uniting them into the oneness from which they sprang. It will help to envision this opposition of direction by throwing a stone into the water. Even though the centripetal spiral which surrounds the falling stone is parallel to the ripples caused by it, the direction of the force of its falling is 90 degrees from the direction in which it falls. If these diagrams and the others throughout these lessons help to visualize the universe and the creator of it into sufficient reality to help mankind to be transformed into cosmic knowers instead of sensed thinkers, our combined efforts in writing these lessons will have been well repaid. It is in this spirit that we will feel fully repaid and rejoice with you because of it. I humbly thank you with all my heart for this opportunity today in the sharing of this wondrous information by which you can turn your planet about from its destructive path. If you will stand with me, I will stand with you, and no person ever failed under my assistance. I speak now of your very presence of life as you move into wholeness. Suppose you have been trained in a particular activity. Your presence of life, like a flash of lightning, can now prepare you and make you equal to whatever is required in your service that you desire. I want you to hold that unlimited action of your presence through your own brain and body because it is truth. In all the glorious things that are before you, be firm, be determined, and stand unyielding in your call, for the perfection and limitless supply and all that you wish to have come forth into your use and action through your body and into your world of action, and you have that eternal blessing, freedom, and perfection of life. It is possible you still do not conceive what the power of divine love is in its fullness. But were you my children in a physical embodiment, I could not possibly love you 1/10 of what I love you today when I see your willingness to make the necessary application to be free. Knowing that we have, by the identical same application, attained our freedom, then do you understand why that love is so great? There is no human element in it, but a great power of love that wants you to have your freedom because you are grown up to the point wherein it is time to have these blessings which will lead you into that freedom. I, Germain, wish to again share with you that a very great presence has recently come forth again from within that great silence. That presence is giving you that assistance today. So I want you to realize that everything that the outer man is capable of receiving is being brought forth into action for your freedom, sustaining power of protection and supply. May you be given into the acceptance of that great cosmic light which is focused here upon you blessed ones. Accept the fullness of its invincible power, its invincible protection, its directing intelligence, and your freedom and victory in the light now and forever sustained. I thank you. I am Germain. Chapter 10, Recording 1, Germain, Sunday, September 1st, 1991, 8:17 a.m., Year 5, Day 16. Sunday, September 1st, 1991. Personal Dharma. Would I not sit with you? Have I taught you so little, Chela, that you think I will not sit with you? All you need do is ask. I am, and I am as close as your breath within. I am Aten, and you are my hands. Precious the conspiracy is to pull man down into the depths of soul destruction, starting with the weak and innocent. These things of today are but the sins of the fathers and mothers, resting heavily upon the heads of the children, but the parents realized it not in time to prevent its coming. They too were brain scrambled in the path of worldly physical expression. The point, ultimately, is to pull all the children into social slavery and dispose of ones who are the troublemakers. Man has no concept of that which is truly love. He has been given the happily ever after lie until no relationship is now based on caring and friendship first. Everything has become reversed in the order of application of life truths, and in every case, the mind must be unlocked before the freedom can be gained. If not you, who? Dharma. Words are nothing if not put into action. They are a bunch of scrambled alphabet pieces, nothing more. If you can but consider the problems which cut through your own life in the midst of living with God at your hand every moment of every day, literally, as the gifts they are, you shall see the wondrous opportunities for re-giving unto thine brothers the secrets of the solutions within the fold. Why you? Again, if not you, who? We are giving man the outlay of heinous confrontations, and now we begin to give the answers for the turning about and healing. God never gives only the tale of that which is wrong. He always gives the way. Let us take that which is available within our family and bring it into unity. And yes, precious, I will take the helm that you not feel the load. There will be no miracles, although you will believe them to be such, but we shall develop a new road with open sharing, support, and loving giving. I will not leave you to do anything alone. So be it. Blessings for this next step is at hand. Let us take it without the tarrying, for a planet awaits. Into space through open doors, the roadmap. Germain present to continue in the wondrous unfolding. Blessed are you who see and hear, for through you shall be the kingdom. Once more, the time has come when it becomes imperative that we have a new look upon our universe and totally discard all old concepts. Since science began, it has periodically erased old concepts and replaced them with new ones. Copernicus erased Ptolemy, and Galileo erased Copernicus. Then Faraday and Newton and Rutherford, together with Bohr, erased all of them. Science today will never know its own tragedy and what it is doing to disintegrate mankind unless it erases all old concepts and substitutes the truth of nature's workings. Up to the year 1926, the door had been partly opened by Mendeleev, who gave the world a chart of the elements perceivable by the eye as visible light, assisted by instruments which enlarged their scope to include hydrogen at the beginning and uranium at the end. This chart was an impossibility in nature, for without seed, nothing can grow. The inert gases are the seeds from which elements grow, just as plants likewise grow. Mendeleev shows only 5, figure 66, of the 9 octaves which exist in nature. We show all 9 in our charts as we gave them to Walter Russell, and he charted them accurately for you. These are necessary to include the 8 colors of the spectrum, or 4 parts centered by the white. Do not confuse octaves with groups. We cite this because man is able to comprehend the fact that growing things also grows seeds upon them, which seeds form the basis for reproduction. Man is also familiar with the fact that separate species can be bred from a parent species in which identities are reborn from what they were before. This is a wonderful example of the unchangeability of the seed, even through death. The seed seemingly dies in the ground, but witness the weeds in your garden. Even though they are uprooted, they will return again and again. The understanding of this will help you in knowing why one octave grows from another, and that a destruction of any such offshoot will cause a reversion to its parent species, figure 67. We use this to remind you of the principle which underlies our statement that destruction of such an element as carbon returns it to helium, the inert seed gas of the carbon octave. We also stated that elements of higher octaves, such as tungsten, if electrocuted, would also return to helium and not stop at xenon, which is its own seed. We give that as an explanation of the fact that man had not yet known of any previous inert gas seed. Helium is the first inert gas cited by the Mendeleev chart. He could not, therefore, know that it had passed beyond helium because he did not know that lower inert gases existed. The Walter Russell charts of 1926, which have revealed the existence of 9 inert gases, and the much improved and more complete charts printed herein, will help you better comprehend why every element of the entire octave will return all the way to the seed of its beginning in the still white light of the source of all of them. These charts help us teach you the basic facts of life and instill within you the knowledge that the only way to accumulate power is by giving love out from yourself to other selves and to growing things. To give love to another who sorely needs it is to give him power to conquer his needs, and in turn, it gives you power to give more from yourself. In that way, both you and he multiply the power to give more love out from yourselves. Let us demonstrate that basic fact in plant life. Every branch which extends from a tree constantly needs more of the power of love to help it extend, and the giving of that power by its trunk gives more power to the body, even to its very roots. Likewise, each smaller branch which extends from that body gains and re-gives the power of love to the very roots. And that includes the smallest twig of another species which may be grafted upon it, and which is another identity, for that especially needs power to help it survive from the hurt of its operation. Observe the work of Luther Burbank in transmuting trees by adding to their identity and thus making another identity, or that of the Negro naturalist George Washington Carver, who transmuted the identity known as the peanut into two identities, the peanut and peanut oil. This necessarily long prelude more fully prepares you for understanding how the desire for gaining power through knowing the secrets of God's creation was gradually multiplied from the inconceivable thinness of the early octaves until their thickness made it possible for man to see and measure their body and potential. We talk about the vast distances of galaxies which are millions of light years away, but even a super intellect must strain to comprehend such distances as that. The distances in early octaves outside of our own centering one are almost beyond imagination. It is therefore incredibly strange that man is large enough in intellect to have accumulated enough of the power of knowledge to make use of it in his science in controlling the little he knows to make implements such as his early stone hatchet, and in later years his telegraph, radio, radar, airplane, and astronaut satellites. We now, therefore, print the two charts of the elements made by Walter Russell in 1926. Figures 68 and 69 show how it is that atomic energy came into man's world. The recent and more comprehensible chart, figure 70, affords still greater opportunity to show you how extended elements of matter must return to their first octave gas for renewed power, even as the extended branches of a tree reach to the very roots of it for continuous renewal of their power. These will then help you understand the transmutation principle, the power projection principle, and the solar energy principle, which will aid man in advancing his science 1,000 years in the next short decade, and thus realize his purpose of manifesting the God of love upon the earth. I climax these lessons with the new knowledge of how man can multiply his power only by giving out from himself to other selves. Let us study figure 70 with this idea in view. First, take note that carbon is the pivotal center of the 9 octaves and is in the anode position. It is the first of the wave amplitudes to have closed its hole and reversed its direction of compression from outward to inward. Its balanced position makes it possible to be encircled with the true matehood of geometric symmetry. The succeeding amplitude positions lose that simplicity. Silicon, the next one on its wave amplitude, complexes to a hexagonal symmetry. Then comes cobalt, rhodium, and lutetium, which still further complex until the plutonium-neptunium 9th octave makes any form of crystal formation impossible by the multiplication of heat, so that the entire octave explodes and gives back to its very roots all that which is given to it. But like the tree which burned or died when it had matured, another tree or group of trees will sprout from those very roots. Carbon is the first amplitude element which has acquired sufficient strength to extend children from itself. Its completed spectrum, divided by a uniting equator, places it in the father-mother position, both of whom as divided pairs have united in balance to produce children such as our Earth, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and outer planets. All of these planets and their moons are children of our sun. It has been but a few 100 million years since human life became existent on our Earth. Venus will be the next planet to become ready for human life like this Earth. However, it will not be ready for such life for several 100 million years. It takes all these long years for preparation to reborn the seed of humans like you in places rebirthed and reclaimed. Your Earth will slowly pass out into the cold of space as Mars, Saturn, and the outer planets have already done. It is fine, for it is a cycle of rebirthing and reclamation, and then new suns can be born, for it is the never-ending story of God, thought, and manifested experience. When Venus is finally ready for life, the human seed will appear on it because the seed is carried in the inert gases and it is eternal. No better example could there be of the indestructibility of identities. This is the very basis of transmutation that we will show you when we come to that subject. The lesson to be learned from this principle is to attain such a character as to be assured of one's oneness with God. When cobalt is reached, it has gained more power and can produce other elements which return at maturity to their alpha roots. Rhodium and lutetium have extended more such branches from their bodies, and these have strengthened the main trunk, carbon, so that it can extend even stronger branches until the trunk can bear no more, and the strength to support them breaks down from the very strain of it and explodes the whole 9 octaves back into the very fires whose heat rays give them birth. Note that the speed of light has not developed in any of the other 8 octaves preceding your 9th one to produce incandescence in them, and not then until carbon has at long last filled its hole. Density then increases from the outside in. Heat also increases from the outside in. Not even in hydrogen, the amplitude element of the 3rd octave, is there incandescence of itself. We have to make it so by adding incandescence to it in the form of fire. If that were not so, the immense bulk of hydrogen in outer space would explode the whole universe. That tells the story of the smallness of our visible universe, which is only 5 octaves of the entire 9, and the inconceivable time consumed in making the Creator's thinking in light become solid enough to create formed bodies. Power projection. We now apply our knowledge to complete control of gravity power. As we promised in our previous lessons, we will first consider the mystery of power projection. By that, we do not mean power to project missiles from a point in this country to some other point in other countries beyond the Atlantic. We mean power to destroy missiles in those other countries or anywhere underseas by destroying the very metals themselves within which their explosive material is encased. Isn't this fun? In other words, the enclosing metals can be so intensely heated and their conductive and inductive qualities so vastly multiplied that the explosive material within them will ignite and burst their casings. The secret of that is the same as makes transmutation possible by being able to compute the pressures of the elements. You will remember from past lessons when speaking of the language of light, we stated that its basis lies in the fact that every created thing manifests only the idea of itself and cannot be part of the identity of any other idea. Figure number 70 makes that meaning comprehensible. It is all based upon the fact that the pressures developed in any element have their own distinct, unchangeable identities which are measurable. A single simple example of that meaning is the thermometer. The identity of the man idea as a distinct pressure of 98.6. The exactness, which is so finely calculated down to a minute fraction, indicates the knowledge of control that science has to be able to compute it. If a human's temperature is even 1 point higher, we know that he is ill. If it increases to 1 or 2 points above 103 degrees Fahrenheit, you know that it would be impossible for him to survive unless he could conquer it and do so rather quickly. This being known, it is mathematically possible for science to measure pressures of every element in the entire octave series with computers and other finely attuned instruments and establish unchangeable identities in any element so that power projected to them would, as we stated before, destroy their like identities even in far-off countries. Distance has no meaning whatsoever. It is needless to repeat what we have so often stated about the multiplication in octave progression in electronics, so we will now proceed to the discussion of transmutation. By the way, you would-be scientists, know that what you see is what you get. One holds keys, and I will not jeopardize this scribe by comprehensively answering a myriad of questions from you ones wanting the recipe spelled out for you. Many are the ones who know exactly of that which I give herein, and it must be given in security. The time of bringing this forth into public hands is at hand, but the time of being allowed to utilize the information for full, worldwide use is not at hand yet. For first, you must acquire control of your world in the name of God and within the laws. You get your job done in that respect, and the rest will follow. A lot of this transmutation and invention has been accomplished. Many of Tesla's private papers, which were taken by the government at his death and at various raids, outline these things. Fortunately for mankind, the teaching through the usual university standards so trained man into the lie that much lies safely awaiting the touch of godness. Transmutation. Transmutation is based on the fact of gravity control of light. All light is curved and there are no parallel rays in it, as shown by the textbooks on optics. If you look at the diverging rays of light which are projected from the sun, they appear to be straight, but even they curve from sun to sun in long and short curves as they progressively curve spirally toward the focal center of all suns throughout the universe. There is, however, a straight line at the equators of curved ones, but even they move spirally around an orbit of their final focal source in God, their creator. This definitely proves that all of nature, which God's thinking is, must move around the thinker in equally divided thought wave pulsations, which forever spiral centripetally to create illusions of time and continuity of motion in a still universe in which there is no motion. All of these facts about the nature of light in a curved universe must be considered by those who attempt to transform matter from one element to another. Its difficulties are not so complex. However, if these basic facts are understood, the DuPont company proved these principles when they found new atoms by exposing them to light pressure, but they did not know what they were. That is because they did not compute them mathematically to find the exact pressures necessary for pure known atoms. They therefore produced mongrel systems of untraceable mixtures. A scientist or group of scientists of the Central Scientific Company of Chicago has given a great advancement to science through the magnification of the atom some 2,700,000 times, thereby bringing it within range of the eye to see, figure 71. The instrument is called the Senko-Muller field ion microscope, the element tungsten. This makes it possible to look directly at God and thereby prove that there is not but light in all the universe. That light, which God is invisible and inert when cold. It becomes visible only when being compressed by motion. In other, more simplistic terms, God in action. This discovery makes it possible for all electronic workers in the field of computers to be more exact and for radar engineers to vastly improve their instruments. It will also greatly aid science in the field of transmutation. You see, you once wished to stick with Peoria and Rife when the advancement is so much beyond those simple microscopes and frequency boxes. These ones made great leaps and bounds into science, but they did not find the truth of it, and therefore the boxes cannot work to perfection, but only through the centering knowing within mind of capability. Yes, they served and served well and were onto the correct assumptions, however. Let it be known that what happens that viruses are killed in the electron microscopes is due to the principle laid forth above. Viruses are but crystalline substances, and therefore, if one portion of the whole is changed, too much fever, you have changed the entity, not necessarily killed it. There is no such thing as death, remember? This knowledge is of incalculable value in proving the division of the spectrum and thereby the equality of all pairs of opposites, and the statement we have continually made that fire and water are the only products of creation. For flame becomes visible when compressed and invisible when expanded into cold. Between these two equally interchanging lights of rest and motion lies the life principle of creation. These scientists are worthy of great recognition, as are ones who have taken this even further, but these were the first really successful in their attempt. Let us look more carefully at the photograph of the atom in figure 71. Study it with us. Number 1, observe that the complete atom is hexagonal. 2, the outside hexagons are very large and all other hexagons become repeatedly smaller. 3, observe that each atom, no matter how small, is surrounded by ripples which prove that they are water and, as we have stated before, nothing other than water and fire were ever created. We also stated that fire destroyed everything that was ever created and returned it back to its original static cold zero for repetition. 4, let us further consider the incredibly and inconceivably small particle called the atom in the light of the seed. This means that the seed is a living thing, for it begins to pulse. All living things pulse, which means that they are breathing in and out. 5, pulsing seeds grow larger and larger. As they grow larger, they beget larger bodies of fathers and mothers. 6, it is an interesting fact of nature that the father germ seed must be injected into the mother to produce pulsing life by motion. All of the growth of the universe is finally returned by aeons of accumulated heat through the growth process of this curved universe, as outlined above, which repeats itself over and over again, for God will never cease to think. If you will but meditate upon this subject long enough to completely comprehend it, you will have gone far into your own understanding of what inner vision or cosmic thinking means. This will help you attain the power that inner vision gives you in the command of yourself and of matter. And you who are awaiting service in the field of new technology as utilized by cosmic brothers, hearken, for here is that which you wait. One more subject must be clarified in order that researchers are not misled by unnatural discoveries. Science recently referred to the inert gases as noble gases because of the known fact that they would not mix with each other or with any other element. How could they? They are the seed of all the octaves of elements. One cannot mix seed, but one can mix its extensions, just as two kinds of woods can be grafted together. The one simple thing that punctures their discovery is that they also announce that there are 29 such noble gases. There are 9 inert gases only because there are but 9 octaves. Science being aware of only the 5 given in the Mendeleev chart, helium, neon, argon, krypton, and xenon, atomic energy would not be possible if the plutonium octave did not have niton as its seed from which to grow. Having disposed of these roadblocks, we will now proceed to the mechanical means for providing that needed power to compute the exact pressures necessary to produce definite identities. Necessarily, these must be conical solenoids. If the exact number of turns of wire can be computed to give octaves the proper pressures which nature gives them, they will heat at each 1, 2, 3, 4 octave. Much experimentation must be required to make them so, but once they meet mathematical requirements, they will then be standard and be repeated. They must be, for the language of light tells you that identities cannot be changed without mongrelizing them. Instead of obtaining the pure gas or metal that one needs, the product is not quite the one its identity calls for. The work of transmutation also will greatly aid the mathematician to calculate his pressures, which he must do before he can transmute one element into another. Transmutation is one of nature's orderly, lawful processes. It is continuous in its cycles of rotation. You have seen this process carved in the falling meteorite, which turns into flame while resisting the friction of the atmosphere, and then into water again as it carves its own photograph into the frozen stone of which the meteorite is composed. You have seen oxygen and hydrogen turn into flame by the frozen stones of the meteorite's body in different parts of the world when they were dug up from the earth, stone literally being flame a few seconds before. You have seen volcanoes belch forth great flames of fire into a wet atmosphere, which carved their photographs into lava, which frozen flame is. Why, therefore, should man have any trouble in finding out the secrets of transmutation when there are such discoveries to vastly aid him as knowledge of the inside of the atom magnified 2,700,000 times or more as recently given to you? Water is continuously returning to fire, and that process is again repeated by fire turning into water. Even the astronaut John Glenn saw this happening in an orbit of zero curvature where the atmosphere was presumed to be a void. In one moment he saw snow appear which turned to fire before his eyes, and then the flame instantly disappeared and turned again to snow. We have mentioned this fact before as an example of the natural process of nature. It is worthwhile repeating. As we have preciously stated, amazing help in making all calculations can come from the picture of the inside of the atom, figure 71. Producing atomic energy is dangerous work. Atomic energy must flow its dangerous heat into a steam turbine, while lenses can create energy from steam of superheated water. This can be done without danger. An intense heat can be generated that would develop steam, which could be led into a steam turbine for the creation of a dynamo or reactor as powerful as an atomic one, but totally free of danger. The problem of heat must be solved in order that the coils do not overheat. The tubes, which must run through the octave focal points to carry the transmuted material from atmosphere to gas or soft metals, dense ones being years away at this point, would not get their required heat. Liquid helium could then be used to enclose the cones and heated and pumped through them. A more simple and exact principle is the real solution of that trouble. Power from solar energy is that solution. So let us speak of it. Solar energy. Here it becomes imperative that the solar cells and photovoltaic modules cells be looked at in different scope. Long years of costly effort have been given to the solution of solar energy with very little results worthy of note. The reason for that is because researchers have not used the octave progression principle, which multiplies heat intensity. Flame can be produced by holding a biconvex lens over a piece of paper or wood splinters, but that is not enough heat intensity. Vastly more heat can be obtained by using the octave series of lenses. You require more heat than the sun, and one series of lenses alone can give you. Two stumbling blocks to this principle are cloud obstruction and the dark of night. However, you can acquire without break the intensely hot and white light of oxyacetylene flame. The sun is 90 million miles away. By the time it reaches Mercury, its temperature is greatly reduced, and even more so at Venus, whose surface heat is over 200 degrees, while the Earth's surface average is about 70 degrees. That is because the sun's white light has been filtered out and you receive only its red rays on your Earth. Let us then proceed upon the basis that you will use the white light, which you have multiplied and brought into visibility by the shortwave fast motion, which you have multiplied from the Creator's invisible, motionless light upon which this universe is based. The mechanics of this principle are also simple. Veritable Niagaras of power can be acquired from it. Let us diagram them to work without the need of experiment to meet the requirements of exact identities of unchangeable elements which are strictly pure. We show you a diagram, figure 72, which represents a metal frame around banks of lenses which project underneath in the octave multiplication systems given throughout all of the last of these lessons. This bank of octave lenses can be one of many series of such banks. If enough of them were assembled under one hot white light, a veritable Niagara of heat power could be concentrated upon a pair of metal planes between which water can be pumped at one end and come out boiling at the other end. The boiling hot steam thus compressed can lead directly to a dynamo or reactor, and the problem of solar energy has been solved for such needed purposes as purifying polluted river water or salted water of the ocean. Is everybody with me? This is why you would not choose oil, for instance. This gives reclamation for water great potential. This would also save piping seawater. This would also save piping seawater thousands of miles inland. Pure water can also be transmuted from the atmosphere, as well as pure hydrogen and oxygen for fuels or to make rain. Much of this has been made operational and hidden from you, the people, and is now being used as terror tactics against you. As we have continually said, natural science is simple and uncomplicated, since the Creator's ways and processes are simple and uncomplicated. To know cause is to know what the effect must be. From the simple principles outlined herein and titled The Science of the Cosmos, a new science for tomorrow can come into being which is based on natural law and could bring to mankind a greater era of peace and plenty than it has ever known. It is with our deepest sincere desire to serve our fellow man that we commend these lessons on the new science to you. Too simplistic? Never. God is total simplicity. These lessons may appear too simplistic. They are not if you change your concept and open to the facts. They are brief, for the information does not need take great and massive volumes, for the method always works. Science now requires massive volumes upon volumes because the system rarely works. You cannot enter incorrect data and expect results other than incorrect. If you dial an incorrect phone number, you will never reach the one you wish at the correct number. Further, the pages are quite clean, and you can amplify this basic truth into volumes, which can change the course of human destiny if man will but realize that all creation, with its expression in diverse forms, springs from and returns to its one source, its Creator. Down through all ages, man has looked for the answer to himself and his universe outside of himself. When he at last looks within, in God intent, he will wonder why he has always made his life and his ways and processes of life so complex. The Creator's ways and processes are simple, as we so often have stated, and the time has come when many must make their ways and processes simple also. The world of science can truly lead the way and will if it can recognize the basic cause of all things. It has already gone far in demonstrating natural science in ways which have been pointed out in these lessons. Now man has the choice of taking God, his Creator, into the laboratory and working with him by putting natural law into full operation, or destroying himself through a lack of comprehension of his oneness with all things. How sad that the original receiver of this wondrous information was not present to send the final portions unto you, his brothers. It is, however, exactly as it was to be, for the time is only now at hand, where the cry of the phoenix will be heard across the lands. Many great men of science acclaimed this work. Some has been utilized, but none made available in its free and simple form because of the elite, greedy adversaries. As you bring these under control, so shall then blossom the wondrous secrets of the universe. Most ones in science simply have not understood cosmic knowledge and can't comprehend and accept this contribution. But it shall be given to the open-minded ones who give to fellow man instead of take. It has always been thus for those so far ahead of their day. We honor this great and tremendous contribution to man from the one who has knew and understood. Just as cosmic brothers have grown far beyond this simple concept, so too shall you. But this is where you start, and the rest will be given unto you. God will work with you, not for you. Dharma, allow us a respite, please. It is time you take a break, but we draw near the ending of this particular series, and then we can turn to more personal things and current attentions. We will have a few more major discussions on the transformation of man, however, so bear with us a bit longer. We are greatly in your debt. Blessings within the light, for our work is well projected, and thanks to those who handle it with care and love. It is projected to the masses that all might have. Where God dwells, no darkness can be found. I am Germain.